Hi, have you experienced a recent upheaval or trauma in your life? Whether it's the loss of a loved one, as I experienced back at the end of January of this year, or a divorce, or a health crisis, empty nest, a job loss, or change, or retirement. And if any of these events have caused you to lose your mojo, or have you feeling stuck, disconnected, and that your sparkle is dimmed, well, you're not alone and you're not broken. You just need a new way forward with small, doable steps that are easy to take one at a time. In this video, I'm going to show you how tiny daily habits, what author James Clear calls atomic habits, can help you gradually and gently rebuild your life so that you can have energy, vitality, and purpose after age 50. So we're kicking off the Shine After 50 book discussion videos with this book because I felt it was appropriate. Now, when James Clear experienced his trauma, he was not over age 50. He was only in high school. But his story was so dramatic and his recovery so breathtaking, even though it took time for him to recover. It's just a remarkable story, and I thought that you should learn about it and hopefully read the book yourself. And so what makes James Clear's story so meaningful and remarkable is that his skull was shattered, took him months to recover, and his life became really constrained. There was only so much he could do because his recovery was so slow. However, by the time he went to college, he started creating a solid foundation of tiny daily habits to enhance his sleep, to enhance his academic performance, and to enhance his strength training. And as a result, tiny habits created and expanded upon day by day enabled him to excel in school and become an all-American academic. So I'd like to think about what he has in his book, share with you what I'm learning as I read through this, so that you can consider applying these same principles to your life after age 50. Yes, it's never too late to create extraordinary results. And if you allow me, I will have to check my notes because I can't recall everything. But I felt that this book was especially important because I wanted to kick off this relaunch channel, since my focus is on women experiencing a major upheaval, is to apply the principles of someone who went through a major trauma and was able to bounce back, not immediately, but just day after day of implementing tiny steps. And I was especially struck too, I love the metaphor of the atom, because an atom is an incredibly small, a small thing. It's incredibly small, yet it has explosive power. And so if you use tiny habits, start with tiny habits, and incrementally using the law of compound interest, stacking them up, enhancing them, adding to them, you can create incredible results over time. So let's take a look at some of the things that James Clear talks about in this book. And some of the key quotes that I'd like to share with you include the following. Clear says, "The quality of our life often depends on the quality of our habits, and even the smallest shift can move the needle." And I will say that I have implemented this myself. When I was age 24, on the cusp of turning 25, I started noticing that many of my peers were starting to already get a little bit out of shape. If they were now in the workforce, and maybe they weren't as active as they had previously been. And I was looking around me and noticing this, getting out of shape, gaining some weight, etc. And I thought, okay, Right now I'm fine, but I don't want this to happen to me. So what I did was I committed myself. I said, okay, if I want to stay healthy and I want to maintain my weight, college weight and physique, which is what I've done for 50 years, is that daily exercise is essential. It's one of the pillars. So I committed to daily exercise, but I started with a plan to run every day, but I started with running just 5 minutes a day, just very small steps. And then each week I added another 5 minutes. So building that habit very gradually and allowing my body to acclimate so that it wouldn't rebel. I was surprised recently I heard Katie Couric talk about a friend recommended that to stay in shape, after she's 68 now, I think. She said, then her friend said, oh, you've got to carry 2 40-pound kettlebells and do X, Y, Z. And she said she was so sore and in such agony for the next few days. Well, you can't do things all at once. It's these tiny atomic habits that produce lasting results. So I've applied this myself back when I was 25 and more recently with instilling new habits, whether it's resuming my journaling practice and also just keeping my kitchen clean, keeping the sink clear, those type of things. And another core principle that James Clear talks about is that principle of compound interest. Tiny habits stacked over time build tremendous power. They're atomic. They have an explosion of power, of positive power, assuming they are positive habits. So consider that. Just this tiny atom has explosive power. So I found one of the key things in his book, in the beginning, in the first section of his book, is there's a remarkable story. It's an iconic story where he talks about this British cycling team that had mediocre performance for years. And then I think it was the early 1900s, they got a new trainer, and this trainer was well versed in implementing incremental changes over time and making marginal improvements over time, that whole concept of compound interest. And within 5 years, this cycling team, British cycling team, that hadn't won anything for a long time, won multiple Olympic gold medals and 5 Tour de France. They won 5 Tour de France competitions. So that was all based on the incremental changes that this trainer had the competitors do, whether it was their nutrition, their sleep habits, their bike seats, what they used the oil they used in their wheels, all the different facets of what goes into a cyclist's performance were addressed and the focus was making 1% improvements. And that compounded over time and they blew away the competition. So for me, that's an extremely dramatic story that this mediocre team could make such a transformation. So just think about that, how you could apply that to your life. If you're feeling that loss of mojo, feeling lethargic, what are some tiny little habits that you can start implementing every single day, just in an easy way? Ease into them. Baby steps is what I always say. I talk about that in my yoga book. Start yoga if you've never done it before. Baby steps. So that's a key concept, this incremental improvements. And another takeaway from this book, in the first section of the book, is that James Clear also says that although goals may be important, setting goals is not as important as creating a system. Like you can set a goal, I want to make X, Y, Z this year amount of money, or I want to lose this amount of weight. But if you don't have a system in place to ensure that you're taking the actions needed to achieve that goal, you're going to likely fail. And I think that is a powerful powerful differentiation that you need to have a system, a set of action steps that you take daily to reach your goal. So I think that's a vital takeaway from this book. And also another key point I'd like to make in this first part of the book is that he says it's important to create an identity that is consistent with what you want to achieve. Now, for example, if you want to lose weight, you've gained 20 pounds or whatever the case may be, or you're out of shape and you want to become active, you want to become leaner, is to start identifying yourself as the person who takes the actions of someone who stays lean, who's active. You start making decisions like, well, you'll take the staircase instead of the elevator when you're in a certain building. If you will park your car farther away in the parking lot from the grocery store to add in more steps because you decide that you're going to be an active, energetic person. It's that identity is important. And he gives an example of people being offered a cigarette and one person's someone trying to quit and the other person's not a smoker. You have to take on the identity that you are not a smoker, that you're not, if you are a smoker, that you are no longer a smoker, and it's not like you're trying to smoke, trying to stop smoking. It's you have the identity that you're no longer a smoker. So that, I think, is an excellent distinction on how to start creating more positive behaviors. So the overall points in the first part of this book and throughout the book is that tiny habits hold big power, and that habits compound like interest, and that systems make change sustainable, and that identity drives long-term transformation. So here's what I'd like to invite you to do in the next week. Choose one small habit to begin with that you want to implement, some small change in your life. Share it in the comments and I'll cheer you on. And then, if possible, if you can get the book or get it on Audible, listen to it. Listen to the first chapters 1 through 4, which I've covered essentially, gone over today, the general concepts, and then look into chapters 5 through 8, or take whatever time you need, but consider investing in this book, taking it out from the library, listening to it on Audible to start creating atomic habits. I hope you found this helpful. If you've not already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. And until next time, remember, you are a shining star no matter who you are, shining bright to see what you can truly be. And get started with those atomic habits.